Hello, this is Bill McKenzie, editor of The Catalyst. Today we are speaking with Margaret Spellings, president of the University of North Carolina and former Bush Center president. In this edition of The Catalyst, we're focusing on how North America can realize its potential. Margaret, as a former education secretary, what do you see as the big education challenge facing a stronger North America? And here I'm thinking about, first off, kind of the K through 12 challenge.
Right. Well, I think we know from this initiative, Bill, that whoever is going to lead the global economy is going to do so because they have the best prepared people and the most innovative and most creative and most productive individuals. And I think in addition to the incredible natural resources we have here in these three countries, oil and gas in particular, we also have to invest in our people. And so the game is how to get many, many more people, first generation and people of color, poor, to much higher skill levels so that we can have a very, very capable workforce and, by extension, an incredibly vibrant economy.
As you know, in this country, we hear a lot about the achievement gap, which talks about the differences between student learning. And in some cases, this will involve the differences between Latino students and Anglo students. So, given your experience, what do you see as some of the ways to close that gap?
Well, as you know, I think we can't do any precise diagnosing and correcting of a problem until we have really accurate data that we can use to be about solutions. And now that we're in the era of local control, with a less vigorous, less muscular federal role to hold us accountable for those achievement of those groups. Obviously, the duty is on states and local school boards to attend to that. And I think it's a couple things. One, we need better research around the needs of particularly first generation, non-English speaking populations. Obviously, are changing demographics all over the country, North Carolina and Texas likewise, and need to show us the way to how best to serve those students. But that's the game. Get students of color, minority students, students who don't speak English at home, to high levels of education.
Talk about what you would see the schools of tomorrow being like. A couple examples of what that would entail.
Yeah, I think we're going to have education that's a lot more a la carte, self-paced badging and credentials, and it'll be less about the physical place and more about the pace and the offerings that the learner can access, often through technology, facilitated by a teacher educator, clearly. But I think it's going to be more a la carte as opposed to, here's the buffet of education that we've had for so long.
How do you see universities expanding North America's potential in intellectual capital?
Well, in a variety of ways. Obviously, by extension, some of the things we've just talked about in K-12, higher levels. We have a clear, pretty significant achievement gap in American higher education. Obviously, you know the numbers. If you're Hispanic or African American, your prospects for having a baccalaureate are reduced, and so we need to close that gap. But in addition, we look to our universities, and we should look to our universities for technology transfer. I mean, the ability to innovate and germinate the scholarship that has been foundational to so many industries. And in North Carolina, the biotech industry, here in Texas, the oil and gas industry, that those are things that have come out of our great universities and have really helped create jobs and opportunity for our states and for our citizens.
As we think about Mexico, the U.S., Canada together sharing education resources, so in your mind's eye, what does that mean? Is that more students being able to move back and across borders?
I think that's part of it, absolutely. But it's also, and this sounds so policy wonky, but we need to get our credentialing system sorted out so that, the people in the United States have a good understanding of what a credential from Monterey Tech means, for example, or vice versa. And so we just need to have some circularity of our credentialing systems that will allow us to really understand the skill levels of people coming from any country.
All right, last question here. What do you see as standing in the way of something like that happening for North America? at the university level?
Well, I think, for starters, we need to just get at the task. They are complicated because obviously licensure and credentialing, I mean, there's a lot of prerogatives of universities themselves, likewise states and the federal government about, accreditation and those sorts of things. So I think we need to, put the elephant on the table and get around it and start to work on those issues. How do we know quality when we see it? Is this an impossible task? What are some things that we can understand in more standardized ways? There are some fields that will lend better to that kind of approach: technology, computer science, healthcare. Some of these things that are more quantitative and can be measured. But we ought to start.
Right. All right, Margaret Spelling, thank you for visiting.
Thanks, Bill. Love the Catalyst.
Great. Terrific.
Thanks.
Thank you.